plants which had medicinal properties. And imagine that this book, I mean, his work of Dioscorides, it basically it remained a guide to medicines for 1,500 years. In the Western world, I mean, 1,500 years, the work that was carried out by Dioscorides ruled basically this Western world until the invention of compound microscope, right? When compound microscope was invented, then things started changing. You started looking at cells, so on and so forth, right? Now we have Theophrastus doing something extraordinary, and then Dioscorides publishing De Materia Medica, and then look at the impact of this book for 1,500 years. This remained the guiding book for medicine, right? Then during 17th century, there were many people, I will hurriedly go through them. Helmont measured uptake of water in a tree. I mean, water uptake is something very important for trees. And then it was in 1640, Helmont measured the uptake of water. In 1665, this was the watershed moment in biology, not only in botany, in biology also. Why? Because Robert Hooke invented the microscope. And for the first time, Robert Hooke was able to see cells under microscope. It's a different story that he couldn't see basically the nucleus within the cells, right? When the nucleus was discovered, it led to further progress in the sciences. And then the description of the cells of Robert Hooke were published in something called as micrography. And then, as Professor Yusuf said, that these graphical representation also are a repository of the works that have been carried out previously, and many historians have used them for documentation of the progresses that have been made in zoological or botanical sciences. In 1674, Anton van Leeuwenhoek saw the living cell under microscope, another watershed moment, and he, for the first time, it led to the discovery of microbes, the diverse group of microbes which cause disease, so on and so forth. These are single-celled organisms. And look at basically the period. 1674, discovery of microbes is taking place in wood. And in 1686, John Ray publishes his book, Historia Plantarum. And this Historia Plantarum was the first initial step towards modern taxonomy. Although we will talk about Carl von Linnaeus also, binomial nomenclature, so on and so forth. But the initiation of the modern taxonomy, or the seeds of modern taxonomy, were sown by none other than John Ray way back in 1686, right? Then comes Stephen Hales, right? He established plant physiology, and then comes Carl von Linnaeus. I will not talk much about it, reason being Professor Yusuf talked extensively about the works of the Carl von Linnaeus. I mean, he is considered to be father of taxonomy. I mean, his Species Plantarum, right? 1753 book is something, a sort of something very essential, very important in, at least in plant sciences, right? And then he considered the species as the smallest unit. And then he said that each species is under a higher category. He gave the idea of taxonomic hierarchy. Then in the latter part of the 18th century, Joseph Priestley laid foundation for chemical analysis of plant metabolism. And somehow you are getting to understand that people, first of all, talked about the plants that were around them. Then they invented microscope, looked at the cell. Then they looked at the metabolism part. Then they standardized the naming of plants, what is called as nomenclature, largely due to the works of Carl von Linnaeus, right, which is still continuing as on date. And then during the 19th century, there were very big discoveries made. So 1818, chlorophyll was discovered, which is central to the process of photosynthesis. And process of photosynthesis is something very essential reaction to life. I mean, if you do not have photosynthesis, if you were not having photosynthesis, life would not have been existing, right? Then further elucidated, this process was further elucidated by Mayer. And in 1859 came Charles Darwin, right? And then, though he was pursuing medicine at Edinburgh, medicine didn't interest him. Somehow got to the SMH Beagle, went to Galapagos Island, saw finches, and then ultimately came out with a theory, I mean, central cardinal principle of his theory, the survival of fittest. And then Charles Darwin and Alfred Wesley are shown here. They collaborated. Darwin soon published his renowned book, on the origin of species by means of natural selection. It not only influenced biology, it influenced the socio-political thought also in rest of the world. Another I mean, the dominant, I mean, the person, I mean, dominant basically a thinker of that time was Gregor Mendel. He was a monk. He worked on peas. He established it. He is considered to be father of genetics. He established the principles on it, which hold true even today. I mean, no biology course would be complete ever without talking about Charles Darwin, Theophrastus, Gregor Mendel, right? And then if you are doing molecular biology course, then Friedrich Miescher, who first of all identified the nucleus within a cell. Robert Hooke had also seen the cell, but he had not seen the nucleus. Reason being, his microscope might not have been that strong. And then this Friedrich Miescher, first of all, identified the nucleus, and in the nucleus was residing the heredity material. That means the discovery of nucleus opened the new vistas for studying the genetics, right? Because the genetic material was residing there in the nucleus, right? Now, in the 20th century, the processes of nitrogen fixation, ammonification were discovered. Two chlorophylls were identified. Then Emerson's enhancement effect came. Ecology became a separate subject because I pursue ecology. That's the reason why I have mentioned it here. I mean, some sort of partisanship as well. And then DNA structure was cracked by Watson and Crick. Although there are other people, Rosalind Franklin, who worked earlier than Watson and Crick. I mean, you can't name everybody, but 1953 represents something very extraordinary event in the history of sciences. And why? Because Watson and Crick, they gave the structure of DNA, and this structure of DNA led to the rapid progress in the field of, say, the biotechnology. Then discovery of recombinant DNA technology opened up new avenues for doing exceptionally path-breaking, unforeseen, basically, developments in biology, right? You can do now genetic engineering, you can engineer crops, you can put genes from, say, a distant organism into an unrelated organism. I mean, these are very transformational things that have happened over a period of time. It's a brief, basically, history of the world, and in this context, we'll put what was done in botanical sciences in India, right? Now, you must, each one of us or each one of you must be knowing that ancient in India, there is some mention of this plants in Vedic literature as well, right? And then the ancient history covers basically the period which is up about to say, period 3000 BC AD to BC to 500 AD. I mean, there are three age systems: Stone Age, Bronze, Iron. The recorded history started from the Bronze Age. Now, in Vedic period, which is from 2500 BC to 600 BC, is the period during which the Vedas, old scriptures, were composed. Now, in certain basically of these scriptures, you will find the mention of plant names and then their classification. For example, in Rig Veda, three groups of plants have been recognized: viz, trees, say for example, Vrishka, then herbs, Siddhi, creepers. In Atharvaveda, type, shape, and morphology of plants are described. In Yajurveda, four groups of medicinal plants are described. That means even before basically the happenings in the rest of the world, in Vedic period, you would find some mention of plants in the very old literature. Now, botany during the Middle Ages in India, in history, Europe, Middle Ages are medieval period that lasted, say, approximately from 5th to 15th century. In India, simple artificial plant classification system of Rig Veda and Atharvaveda, about which I talked, became more botanical with the work of a very legendary figure called as Prashara, right? Who was there from 400 to 500 AD, who is author of a book called as Science of Life of Trees. And he made, this is to be noted, he made close observations of cells and leaves and divided plants into dicotyledons and monocotyledons. Now look at the period 400 to 500 AD, right? Anyway, and look at the classification dicotyledons and monocotyledons, the groups that are settled, that are currently also recognized. Dicotyledons were further classified into the NAS, right? Akin to modern floral families. But during, not only the Prasara was working, doing exceptionally good work in India, mention needs also to be, India was not in the, as a political entity as it is today. There were other areas also associated. And one need to actually make mention of an Iranian botanist named Abu Hanifa Dinavari, who made huge advancements in plant classification around year 300, right? He described 673 plant species in detail and wrote extensive notes on ecology of each species. And some people say that this was probably the most impressive plant guide in the world at that time. Now, while you have mentioned of plants in Vedas, where Prashara also worked, Prashara was basically a sort of an Ayurvedic, he was a saint who would work on plants only to cure people, right? That was what was basically the fundamental idea was, right? And then the Iranian botanist, he was in a sense the botanist per se. He described 630 plants, 7 plant species. Description is not a small thing even today. And then naturally this needs to be noted, right? Anyway. Now, during the Middle Ages in India, you should remember that Middle Ages is said to have started with the fall of Roman Empire. Now, when Roman Empire fell in 5th century CE, right, and then up to the rise of Italian Renaissance in the 4th century CE, this period of 1,000 years is called as medieval period by European studies. But there are people who say they restrict this medieval period to just 400 years between dark ages when everything, there was discovery, there was indifference to learning and doing science, up to Renaissance, right? Whether you consider 1,000 year period or you consider 400 period of this medieval period, you will find that during this medieval period, particularly the period between 9th and 13th century, that means for 400 years, this was the age of Islamic Renaissance, when Islamic culture and science were at their best, and not excluding botany, although astronomy and other things, mathematics, is that, right? They were being basically pursued by these Islamic scholars. Point is this, when there was dark age elsewhere, there was Renaissance taking place in Islamic world, and then people say that much of the science was preserved basically in this area, and then which made basically say through different ways, which made say mathematics entry into India as well. Now, in India, during this medieval period, contributions were independently made in botanical sciences in North India and then in South India. What was South India was those Dravidian Tamil country, right? In North India, the works on plants included, say, in works of Udiana, then works of Dharmamotra, right? And then Sankara Mishra, as well as writings of Amir Khusrau. While as in the South Indian, works included large number of Tamil literary works, and then certain epigraphs, photographs also, and a lot of information has been taken from those epigraphs as well about the status of, say, botanical research during that period, right? All these sources, whether you use, say, these books or you use epigraphs or you use the other documents, you will find that these provide an information about the natural flora of India. And then also about the agriculture crops that were cultivated in India, right? And then also about the plants that were introduced from elsewhere. And one important thing during this medieval period that happened in India was establishment of temple gardens. Whether it's a temple garden or if this is a garden not basically looked after by temples, but still then in gardens you will be cultivating plants. And naturally, once you cultivate plants, you are doing a sort of a conservation also. That means gardens were there for established in India even during medieval period. And then more than 600 wild plants were growing, which have been listed in Tamil country alone. And then Mughals also established certain gardens, right? And not for reasons, not for botanical studies, but for other reasons, right? Anyway. Now, after this period came the Portuguese and Dutch to India, right? You know that the history tells us that these people, these Portuguese and Dutch, they ruled India for a pretty long time. Before English people, they were here. And there are many people who have done exceptional work, right? Good work. But these people with whom I have listed, they have done something which is being still remembered, right? Now, say, for example, Gracia de Hota was a Portuguese explorer herbalist and a naturalist. And his magnus opus was a book on simples and drugs, which was published in 1763 and which is still referred to. It basically gave a description of a very large number of medicinal plants, right? Then Acosta was again a Portuguese doctor and a natural historian. And he is considered to be a pioneer in the study of plants from Orient, right? And then he was he along with the Pyres and in Gracia, they were pioneers of Indo-Portuguese medicine. And somehow, people are coming to India from elsewhere, the traditions that they had there, they have carried them to India. And then the next book on medicinal plants of the Orient was published in 1578, right? Likewise, a Dutch botanist of the name of Comelin, he published Flora Malabarica in 1696. Where you can now well imagine that in India, publication of floras is very old tradition. Publication of floras means a collection of plants, their identification, then drawings, then description, and then way back in 1696, Flora Malabarica was published, right? Then the another person who needs mention, specific mention, and the youngsters who are attending this meeting should remember the name of Van Reed. Now, why he should be remembered? Because he wrote something called as Hortus Malabaricus, right? Meaning the Garden of Malabar, way back in 1678, right? That means prior to publication of Species Plantarum, Van Reed had written a book called as Hortus Malabaricus. And then when he was in India, and then you must remember, keep it in mind that Carl von Linnaeus he depended on Van Reed's Hortus Malabaricus while writing or publishing this Species Plantarum. Such is the importance of this book. And this book was subsequently translated in English and Malayalam by K.S. Manilal, right? Kalyani University, he would serve Kalyani University. And as many as 250 Reedian elements were used by Linnaeus for description of plants in Species Plantarum. Now you can imagine a person of the caliber of Carl Linnaeus using 255 different descriptions of which Reed had mentioned in Hortus Malabaricus. Now you can imagine that the importance of this book. Now, botany in British India, Britishers came as East India Company, right? Anyway, they would send army officers, this, that, anyway. Highly motivated, I will list certain highly motivated naturalists who basically came here, right? Isn't it? For different activities. And then in the process, they did botany also. They did botany for certain, say, commercial reasons also, but certain did botany for the sake of botany as well. They were interested in plants. Robert Kidd was a British army officer who was stationed in India. And then he founded still, as on date, famous botanical garden at Calcutta in 1787. This Kidd was basically an army officer. He was sent here to explore what are the plants growing here, what is their commercial importance, so on and so forth. Then another basically person who came from basically, say, British, would you please keep your mics on? William Roxburgh, right, was a Scottish surgeon and a botanist. And this person worked extensively in India, describing species and working on economic botany. And for his work, William Roxburgh is called as father of Indian botany. While Theophrastus is called as father of world botany, father of botany at global level, William Roxburgh is called as father of Indian botany. And the pinus that grows in Jammu region, beyond, say, Punjab, is also named after him. It's called as Pinus Roxburgh, right? Then William Griffith was a British doctor, but he was a botanist also, right? He published botanical information from India and Burma. Robert White, another basically famous person who came during this British Raj, right, was associated as a Scottish surgeon in East India Company. And his greatest achievements were in botany. He was a leading taxonomist in South India, right? And there were people who were, look at this. This is the picture of the botanical garden, which still is the National Botanical Garden on the banks of Hooghly in Calcutta. It is now called as Acharya Jagdish Chandra Bose. Now look, and this garden, which is settled basically a prized possession in India, was established by an army officer during the British Raj, Colonel Robert Kidd, as I said earlier, right? Now, why he would basically be here? He would basically be largely interested, as I said, identifying new plants of commercial value, such as teak, growing spices for trade, right? This was his mandate. But this, Joseph Dalton Hooker, Hooker's Flora is very well known. He says that one of the greatest, basically, say, triumphs of this botanical garden has been the introduction of tea plant from China. Now, in Himalaya also we drink tree, Assam में भी tree cultivate बहुत करते थे. This is not a plant that is our indigenous plant. Instead, it was introduced by Robert Kidd, basically tea plant from China. He grew it in botanical garden. When it grew successfully, then they learned that tea can be prepared out of it, and now you can imagine that there is a huge enterprise in Assam based on tree, right? Now, this is one small example what these the botanical gardens could be doing, right? Anyway, now then subsequently this botanical garden was looked after by William Roxburgh, right? And incidentally, the pinus that grows in Kashmir is called as Pinus Roxburgh after him, right? And then what he did is he made a small change in the entire policy of this botanical garden. He became superintendent of botanical garden in 1793, and Roxburgh brought plants from all over India and developed an extensive herbarium. And if you are a plant taxonomist, without going back to Calcutta, this herbarium, you have not seen all the collections. You will find collections of 16, 17, or so on, and that was basically the work of Roxburgh, right? Likewise, Nathalie Welch was a young surgeon. He was also a Danish origin. He worked in India. He settled near Serampur, near Calcutta. Why? Because the Dutches were there. And then he also was involved in the establishment of Calcutta Botanical Garden, right? Now, this person, I have deliberately kept his picture bigger. I don't think that anybody has done the great work as he has done. He is Sir Joseph Dalton Hooker, who was a Kew botanist. Kew is a place in England where there is a botanical garden and there is a herbarium also. This is considered to be a very premier institute in plant taxonomy. Of that institute, he was the director, right? And then he was the first European botanist who collected plants from Himalaya. Hooker came to this place, around Himalaya also. He visited here in India for 3 years, collected plants from Sikkim, Khasi Hills, and other places. In a nutshell, his great work, translated into what is called as Flora British India, which is still consulted. This was published in 7 volumes starting in 1872. And it's the fact that this Flora British India is based on the works of Griffiths and Thompson's collection, which were collected from India, but they were sent to Kew. Why? Because facilities were there. That means the botanist should be knowing that what Flora British India means to them, and he is the person who has done. That means the contribution of the people like Joseph Dalton and others during this British period has been very of high date, right? Anyway. Then Duthe he also established another botanical garden at Saharanpur, right? Anyway. And then one name which stands out during this period is Upendranath Kanjilal or U.R. Kanjilal. He was an Indian botanist during this period and a forest officer. And then he was born in 1859, studied at Presidency College in Calcutta, and then went to forest school at Dehradun.
Mr.
Dr. please mute yourself.
Dr. Uwais Ahmed sir, please. Dr. Uwais Ahmed sir.
Okay, kiya. Zabar sir, sorry, go ahead.
No issue. Right? Kanjilal was born in 1859. And then he became the forest officer and rose to the position of, say, deputy conservator of forests. He was elected because of his contribution to botany. He was elected as fellow of the Linnean Society in 1902. He died in 1928. And his work on flora of Assam was ultimately completed by his son, P.C. Kanjilal. right, who was also a forest officer. Anyway, I mean, somehow the first basically native Indian had got training in the Forest Research Institute, Dehradun, became interested in plants. And then naturally he was publishing something called as Flora of Assam, couldn't complete it, and then ultimately his son did it, right? Now, look at this. This is another basically an institution of immense importance to, say, botanical sciences. Professor Yusuf talked about Zoological Survey of India. Parallel to Zoological Survey of India, there is something called as Botanical Survey of India also, right? And under the directions of Sir George King, Botanical Survey of India was established. It was formally instituted by East India Company on 13th February 1890. Now, because these people realized that India has wealth of, say, plants, and the nature of the plants, the diversity of the plants varies, say, across this almost a continental scale country. And as such, you need to create basically a sort of an organization which devotes itself exclusively to the collection and identification of plants, and then identifying the valuable plants also for their use in agriculture or in other commercial activities, right? The George King, since he established it, he became the first ex-officio director, and it is still continuing. I mean, Dr. Ma is the director currently, and it is considered to be a fountainhead of say, taxonomic research in India even today. But its foundations were laid in British, basically India, by George King. This one has to remember, right? Now, there is a botanical garden also there, and then the Calcutta Botanical Garden is also, I mean, in this Botanical Survey of India. Another premier institution which still basically is there in India and doing and continuing with the work on botanical research is National Botanical Research Institute. You must understand that it was basically a garden there established in 1789 AD as a royal garden by the then Nawab of Oudh, Saadat Ali Khan. Right? Anyway, and then now its name is renamed as CSIR, National Botanical Research Institute, in 1978. Prior to basically this, it was also called as Sikandarbad. That means a Raja, a royal, right, establishes a garden and then establishes in a manner that government also feels that we shall have to actually take it over, say, after independence, work basically, say, I mean, carry forward the work. And then ultimately, this seed that was sown by Saadat Ali Khan led to the establishment of a premier botanical institute currently, which is doing research. I mean, incidentally, an ecologist basically is currently director of it. They work on different aspects of biology, right? Anyway, but what I am saying is that we are tracing basically the history of all these major institutions that are currently engaged in work on various aspects of botany. This photograph was shown by Professor Yusuf also. I would also show it. He has also shown it purposefully. I'm also showing it purposefully, right? Anyway, now this is the old picture of the Forest Research Institute there, right? And it began as a very small school, forest school, in 1878. And initially it was named as Imperial Forest Research Institute. FRI came into being in 1900. And this is the new building, I mean, new campus of the FRI. And you know that all the forest officers get training in the Forest Research Institute, right? And then this also has at a small beginning way back in 1878. People had recognized the importance of doing research on forests, particularly in the context of Himalaya. And then the importance never diminished over a period of time. Instead, it increased and led to the sprawling campus of FRI that you find as on date in this. Now, this continued, this establishment of botanical gardens, it continued across India. Then the development of herbaria also, increased across length and breadth of India. And then one of the reports which Government of India submitted to CBD, it says that total number of botanical gardens recorded in India are 122. And there are about 2 lakh plants growing in these botanical gardens. And incidentally, we have one also in the University of Kashmir. Likewise, there are 94 herbaria present in India, which meet some criteria of a good herbaria. And out of these 94 herbaria, 59 are recognized by the International Association for Plant Taxonomy, New York Botanical Gardens, and so forth, and are existing in the index herbarium. And incidentally, the herbarium of the Department of Botany also finds mention in this index, and is acronymed as CASH, KSH. And this is the insect, the students working in this CASH herbarium of the University of Kashmir. Right? Now, systematic contributions in the field of botany began after colleges were opened in the headquarters of British provinces, where botany was one of the subjects and was taught as one of the subjects. So far, what you learned, that people were coming, they were army officers, they were physicians, they were, they had other trainings, but felt basically had some interest in plants and collected them, except for Joseph Hooker. Others were not professional botanists. Now, botany is taking, say, a step forward. Now, botany would be read as a science in itself. And then St. Joseph College, Tiruchirappalli here, it was established in 1844. St. Xavier College, Kolkata, 1860. And then the St. Xavier College, Mumbai in 1869. And then well-trained professors who had training in botany arrived from Europe. One amongst them was Blatter. Blatter was principal and professor of botany at St. Xavier College, and so were other people as well. He was vice president of Bombay Natural History Society, with which the late Salim Ali was also associated. Then came Santapa from Spain. He joined teaching at St. Xavier College in 40. And then he worked basically on flora of Khandala, then Western Ghats, so on and so forth. In a nutshell, what I'm saying is, now the botany is moving from, say, a individual surveys done by people who had come from Europe, now to more organized, the curriculum-based study in these colleges. And then the well-trained botanists coming from elsewhere. Now in independent, it's the huge history. Then in independent India, you had, say, people like Jagdish Chandra Bose. He revolutionized science, right? He had interest in many things. He was a physicist by training, right? But he had interest basically in botany, in other plants, in animals as well, right? And then he basically studied how plants and animals respond to external stimuli, right? Anyway, he penned one of the first works of Bengali science fiction. Science fiction is valued currently also. Then a lady I have deliberately kept it here. She was very famous lady. Janki Amal was her name, was an Indian botanist. And incidentally, I must tell you that Janki Amal worked basically as a visiting professor for some time, has worked as a visiting, I have not seen her, at University of Kashmir in the Department of Botany. She was a cytogenetist. She got Padma Shri. She is credited with improving India's indigenous sugarcane varieties. She basically helped analyze sugarcane geographical distribution across India. Then another scientist of post-independent India is Birbal Sahni. You know that there is an institute in Lucknow called as Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleobotany. Now, this person taught botany at BHU and Lucknow universities. He's a fellow of Royal Society. And then he worked on paleobotany and fossils, right? Anyway. Then another towering personality of that time was Shivram Kashyap. He is considered to be father of Indian biology. And incidentally, our ex-head of department, Professor P. Kalshru, had the occasion of working also with Shivram Kashyap for some time at Lahore. He had done his master's at Lahore, and then there Shivram Kashyap would teach. He laid foundation of Indian botany. These are people who have laid foundations. Janki Amal laid foundation of cytogenetics in India. Birbal Sahni, paleobotany. Shivram Kashyap, bryophytes. Likewise, those people who are botanists in attending this, they must be knowing basically Panchan and Maheshwari. And in BSc, there used to be a book which was often recommended, was Embryology by Maheshwari. And then there are two Maheshwaris. This Panchan and Maheshwari was the prominent Indian botanist. He was, he is chiefly known for his invention of technique of test tube fertilization of angiosperms, right? He established the still very famous school of plant embryology at the Delhi University. The other person, towering personality who contributed to the growth of, say this botany is MOP Iyengar, he worked on algae that grow in water. He's considered to be father of algology. Then Shipragua Mukherjee, though had a very, she died because of cancer at a very young age. She basically was the person who discovered the technique of producing haploids in plants through anther culture. And those of you who are cytogenous must be appreciating that what anther culture, production of haploids can do. And then comes the Ramdev Mishra when Madan Mohan Malviya came to Banaras, established Banaras Hindu University. Amongst many people, he invited Ramdev Mishra also there. He was working at Leeds University in UK. He is considered to be father of ecology in India. And still, you must, knowing that there is a very important school of ecology at Banaras Hindu University. And wherever you have ecology schools, including University of Kashmir, this is all through the contribution of Ramdev Mishra and his students. Incidentally, Professor V. Cole, who was serving in the department of was his student, right? Now,
sir, sorry, sir, I will
take 2 minutes, yes.
Sir, okay, sir.
I will be finishing it, right?
Finishing, okay, sir.
Right, anyway. Issue is this, that some people may be basically saying that what history of plant sciences would do, right, so on and so forth. I have used this basically, this text for this reason, that University Grants Commission recommended a decade ago when this paper was published in 1972, that history of botany be taught as a part of botanical training in college and universities. That means there was appreciation for the history, studying history of botany long time back, appreciated by University Grants Commission as well. And then I don't know, there must be people, if there are people who have interest in history, there are many theses, many papers right on history of these sciences also. People can take up here also. Now, history and footprints of plant exploration in Indian subcontinent, somebody has published. There is something called a sketch of the history of Indian history. Then somebody says plants of empire, botanical gardens, colonial power and botanical knowledge. Many papers. This could be basically an area which could basically say pick up after this seminar, and historians could basically start working on the history of the sciences, say in this part of the world also. And incidentally, there is something called as Professor also mentioned that Center, National Biological Research Center, NCBS. They also basically have some sort of basically a conference way back in 2009 about the European writings on Indian botanical medicines. NCBS is a very well-known institution, and they also say attaching importance to the study of history. And likewise, they also worked on tracing botanical knowledge through Cambodian temple art. This is also an activity that was happening at the NCBS. I finally conclude with this slide basically of Lakotas, who was a mathematician. Philosophy of science without history of science is empty, and history of science without philosophy of science is blind, right? I thank you for basically your patient listening. Hope I was on time. If I was late by 5 minutes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sir, आपका बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया. प्रोफेसर जफर अहमद रशीद साहब, आपका बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया. पहले मैं यहाँ प्रोफेसर खुरू साहब से मुल्तमस हूँ, अगर आप इस हवाले से मुख्तसरन कुछ कहना चाहते हैं या फिर अपने सदारती कलिमात में जैसे आप मुनासिब.
I would like to come because it's really a pleasure listening Professor Zafar Rashid. Zafar Saab, Assalamu alaikum. And for the person who is comparing the program, is very difficult to make him to stop, because on one hand you have the time constraint, on other hand you feel listening him. So you are really in a difficult situation, because I have been listening to Zafar. It's always an ocean of knowledge, and it's always, his lectures are always informative, and that's really a pleasure for me as well as for the students, for the audience who are listening to him. And the another articulate thing about him is that he almost touched every aspect of botany evolution, right from start till the end, in a very, very brief and limited time. So we really appreciate him for that, talking from photosynthesis, nitrogen fixation, and everything. In fact, incidentally, photosynthesis is one of my topics. I teach OE classes in this photosynthesis, then telling that this is the basic reaction for the life, obviously. Now, we have been talking a lot about it. Zafar Saab, thank you very much for your very, very elaborated detail of the botanical evaluation. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. God bless you. Thank you very much.
शुक्रिया सर. मैं यहाँ पर अर्ज करता चलूँ सर, मेरे पास जानदारी के साथ कोई अल्फाज नहीं है कि मैं किस तरह से इस आपके लेक्चर को समेटूं. तो जिस खूबसूरती से आपने, मुझे लगता है कि आप शायद पहले लिटरेचर के स्टूडेंट रहे होंगे. मैं आपको सामने हाँ हकीम मंजूर के सर चंद शेर रखना चाहता हूँ. अजब सहरा बदन पर आपका इब्हाम रखा है, ये किसने इस समंदर का समंदर नाम रखा है. मैं तुमसे पूछता हूँ झील डल की बेजुबां मौजो, तहे दामन छुपा कर तुमने क्या पैगाम रखा है. कभी बादल मेरे आंगन में उतरता तो पूछता मैं, पहिस्ता पर बरसना किसने तेरा काम रखा है. यही ना फूल से बिछड़े तो आवारा हूँ सहरा में, कहूँ क्या किसने खुशबुओं का ये अंजाम रखा है. हम दिल की गहराइयों से आपका शुक्रिया अदा करते हैं सर.
Pleasure always ours, sir. So I again thank the organizers for organizing this session on something which is new, novel, right? Maybe it opens up new vistas of research in your Kashmir University as well.
सर हम उम्मीद करते हैं आप आखिर तक हमारे साथ जुड़े रहेंगे इंशाल्लाह.
Sure. Thank you.
हाँ, हमारे साथ कश्मीर यूनिवर्सिटी के इतलाती टेक्नोलॉजी के डायरेक्टर डॉक्टर मारूफ कादरी साहब जुड़े हैं. मारूफ कादरी साहब, मैं आपसे मुल्तमिस हूं कि आप इतलाती टेक्नोलॉजी को तारीखी हवालों से इस मजलिस के सामने रखें. डॉक्टर मारूफ कादरी साहब. मुझे लगता है कि उनके पास तकरीब.
मारूफ साहब आप हैं हमारे साथ?
नहीं, मैंने फोन किया था, वो जुड़ रहे थे सर, मैंने फोन किया था उनको.
अच्छा.
वो कह रहे थे कि बैटरी का कोई मसला है उनके पास.
आज चूंकि मैं मुंतजिमीन से ये दरखास्त करता हूँ, आज चूंकि अचानक बर्फबारी हुई, ये जो बिजली का सिलसिला है, इसलिए इसमें नेट का भी जुड़ा रहना, इसके साथ कनेक्शन है, तो कहीं कहीं थोड़ा सा हिकअप्स आ जाएंगे, लेकिन विल कोप अप दीस थिंग्स. वी कैन वेट अ मिनट.
जी हाँ जिलानी साहब, बट ओवरऑल आई सी ए वेरी गुड पार्टिसिपेशन आल्सो.
बिल्कुल खूबसूरत रहा. हाँ, बिल्कुल.
बिजली की प्रॉब्लम भी है, नेट की प्रॉब्लम भी है, फिर भी 64 पार्टिसिपेंट्स हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं.
सर अभी 86 थे.
हाँ, तो अगर हम 86 से शायद, क्योंकि मैंने चश्मा
नहीं, शायद साहब मैं आपको पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस बताऊं.
जी
शायद साहब मैं आपको पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस बताऊं.
खुरू साहब जरा दर्शन भी करा लीजिए.
अब मैं कराता हूँ. मैं बेसिकली बड़े रिलैक्स्ड मूड में बैठा हूँ.
पीछे छुपे हुए हैं.
अरे सुनिए ना, ना बेकार बियम के वनी ऑनेस्टली स्पीकिंग बु छुस त्यूत करान अवॉइड मे ऑनलाइन क्लासेस आसान बु अवॉइड करा बिकॉज़ सम आई एम नॉट कम, बट सिंस मॉर्निंग आई हैव बीन बिल्कुल एब्सोल्युटली वाचिंग एंड इट्स अ न्यू एक्सपीरियंस. आई रियली एम एंजॉयिंग इट. So but was about so but I can make my video on also. You can watch me. Okay, I'm there. Assalamu alaikum. So nice to see you, all of you.
अगर मारूफ साहब को टाइम लग रहा है तो then maybe I can call him. We can move ahead. Then वो
शाह साहब को मौका देते हैं, फिर मारूफ साहब को इसके बाद करेंगे.
हाँ, maybe I will call him. आप फिर शाह साहब को ले लीजिए अभी.
मुझे लगता है
शाह साहब आप हैं हमारे साथ?
सलाम अफजल साहब.
जनाब अकबर साहब में जनाब रोई हवा
मैं मेरी आवाज नहीं आ गई, वरना मैं कब का तूत कीमती रोई क्या बताओ सूर्य.
welcome.
So nice. सेहत सारी. It's really a pleasure to see you people working in this type of the situation.
वो मारूफ साहब जुड़ रहे हैं हमारे साथ. मारूफ साहब जुड़ रहे हैं, बस एक मिनट.
It was very informative lecture.
जफर साहब को क्या कहना भाई? जफर साहब ना बिल्कुल बेमिसाल है भाई. He's an asset for our university.
He basically works very hard. Otherwise शुगर साइड डिफिकल्ट ना. अपने फील्ड से हट के जो है,
हाँ, हिस्ट्री वाले जो थोड़ा साइंटिस्ट के साथ मुश्किल है, but he did it nicely.
Historical perspective थोड़ा सा बहुत अच्छा.
नहीं, जफर साहब को क्या कहना भाई? We know him through and through. He has been always like that.
फिर ब्रेक लगाना मुश्किल होता है ना.
बिल्कुल सर.
किसी भी उसको वो मैं कह रहा था इनसे, जफर साहब को ब्रेक लगाना is next to impossible. We know it.
Yes sir.
We have been working with him.
To be honest with everybody, I did not want to stop him.
کوئی نہیں چاہتا ہے, کوئی نہیں چاہتا.
عرفان صاحب کو وقت کی پابندی ہے تو پرابلم بھی ہے.
وہی میں نے کہا نا, ان سے یہ پرابلم ہے, ان کو سوچنا.
I really enjoyed his highly informative and articulate, وہ تو ہمیشہ ہی ویسے, بٹ ویری ویل ریسرچ, جو انہوں نے شروع میں بھی کہا کہ بھائی یہ میرا کام نہیں ہے, مجھے پڑھنا پڑا اس کے لیے, بٹ یو سی دا سیریسنیس ود وچ ہی ہیز کلیکٹڈ آل دا انفارمیشن. ایون ہمارے جو یوسف صاحب بھی تھے, اور انہوں نے بڑی میٹیکولسلی جو ہے سارا یہ ڈاٹا ہے, تو ایک نیا ایکسپیرینس ہے فرام دا انالیز آف ہسٹری. اب شاید معروف صاحب ہمارے ساتھ جڑ گئے ہیں تو وی کین گو اہیڈ.
شاہد صاحب ایک بڑی بات بھی ہے نا, شارٹ ٹائم میں اتنا انفارمیٹیو لیکچر بنانا از ریئلی بالکل پروفیشنلزم. I appreciate it.
جی معروف صاحب جڑ گئے ہیں تو عرفان صاحب یو کین گو اہیڈ.
معروف صاحب
السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ.
جیسا کہ میں دوبارہ عرض کرتا چلوں کہ ہمارے ساتھ کشمیر یونیورسٹی کے اطلاعاتی ٹیکنالوجی کے ڈائریکٹر ڈاکٹر معروف قادری صاحب جڑ گئے ہیں. میں آپ سے ملتمس ہوں کہ آپ اطلاعاتی ٹیکنالوجی کے حوالے سے, اس کے تاریخ کے حوالے سے اپنے خیالات اس مجلس کے سامنے رکھیں. ڈاکٹر معروف قادری صاحب.
ایک منٹ میں اپنی
اشفاق صاحب آپ بند کریں گے پلیز اپنا آڈیو. اشفاق احمد لون صاحب.
انفیکٹ اگر سبھی دوسرے
میں عرفان صاحب سے عرض کرتا چلوں پلیز, جس کا آڈیو ان کو آپ میوٹ کریں پلیز, جس کا آڈیو آن ہے وہ میوٹ کریں. معروف قادری صاحب پلیز.
جی 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 اسکرین آیا میرا.
بالکل آیا آپ کا اسکرین, بالکل پلیز.
جی 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 یہاں تو ماشاء اللہ. السلام علیکم. السلام علیکم افضل صاحب.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. We've had so good informative sessions from Professor Zafar Rishi, and before that from one of the professors who was not, I think, from University of Kashmir, but was perhaps from Aligarh Muslim University. But Zafar Saab, as usual, very informative. So
Central University of, وہ ڈین ہے فیکلٹی آف بشریات کے ہیں, وہ فیکلٹی آف اینیمل سائنس کے ڈین ہیں پروفیسر محمد یوسف صاحب.
جی 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 جی. تو ابھی تک تو سائنس کی بات کی, جو سائنس کے باقی فیلڈس ہیں, where we have zoology, we had botany, Professor Zafar. Now I think we all shift to the basic foundation, that is the ICT, which we are in fact using for this session also. And it's been a very important, during, especially during our pandemic, the role of information technology has widened more as to what it was earlier when we were in physical classes and that teaching was disseminated through physical mode of education. But during this course of time, we had not used much of Zoom or other these kind of platforms. Now everyone is aware of, even the basic third class student knows now the Zoom or Cisco WebEx or Google Meet. So I'll be talking about on how different integrations happen in higher education, and what is the history of information technology and how it has evolved during the course of time, and then it has how it has grown, and what are the different projects which have come from MHRD on higher education, where we get different types of connectivity under different programs. So we'll be talking about that. I'll start my slide. First, we'll be discussing, we'll be talking about history and evolution of information technology. Then we'll talk about the different, ICT and 21st century skills. Obviously, impact of ICT in higher education, which we all know. As I said, we'll be talking about national initiatives and then institutional level e-governances happening around different institutions. If time permits, we'll talk about them in detail. So evolution, we've
सर
started.
मैं आपके गोशगुजार ये करना चाहता हूं कि सर आपके पास 20 मिनट का वक्त है.
मेरे पास 20 मिनट का वक्त है. ठीक है,
बिल्कुल सर.
तो 20 मिनट में जितना मैं कवर कर सकूंगा तो मैं कोशिश करूंगा कि मैं ज्यादा से ज्यादा कवर कर लूं. तो जब हम इवोल्यूशन की बात करते हैं तो वी हैव स्टार्टेड ऑब्वियसली फ्रॉम.
थोड़ी सी मौसम कम आ रही है,
आवाज
कम आ रही है,
आवाज कम आ रही है, अभी भी कम आ रही है.
थोड़ा हो गया ठीक, हो गया ठीक.
जी जी जी. तो आई थिंक हम इसको ऐसे लेते हैं कि इसमें तो बहुत सारे प्रोफेसर्स, मोस्ट ऑफ देम आर फ्रॉम यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ कश्मीर बेसिकली, एंड देन दे हैव शिफ्टेड टू द सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी. आई थिंक द चिनार, द लीव्स इज मोर कनेक्टेड टू अस देन एनीबडी एल्स. We have evolved from Nasim Bagh to the technology. We have evolved from the leaves to the postal. We have a post office in Nasim Bagh itself, right? Then we have also had the similar kind of evolution in the campus also, and that's how basically it started, and then it evolved. Post office, speed posts were there, and then we all were using those landline telephones. And then at times I remember when I had to call my father who was abroad during my studies, we had to go to the Srinagar main exchange for making again booking the call. And then those things also slowly, gradually evolved, and then it started with dish TV networks, and then satellite mode of communication, and then came in PDAs, and other evolutions came into place. And now today it's so that um, the communication, we have one of the cheapest mode of communication in the country, compared to what we have in Gulf, or compared to what we have in United States or other parts of the developed countries. So we in that case, we are lucky that we have a very affordable mode of communication, which everybody in today's time efforts here. So we're talking about information systems. It consists of a block of components, several components, where we have technology related hardware, software, and data. And then the roles obviously include the people and the processes, because all this includes and consists, and it makes an information system. But the most important role, which in today's time is played by the data, people, and the processes. The data in today's time is the most valuable treasury we have in terms of higher education also, where we say, okay, even if we are planning to move to the new educational policy, the data is going to play a very important role in the process. Students will be opting for certain courses outside the university across the country, and then getting that data, that's going to be a huge repository. Something like when we have a national one umbrella.
Sorry, sir, there is some problem with his mic. Could you please set it right? His audio is not clear.
Is it so still?
It has improved. It has improved.
1 minute. I'll just bring my laptop closer. So the data is going to play a very important role, in NEP as well. The way we have had, national knowledge network connectivity, connecting different universities under one, ambit, and then sharing of resources on the journal side, which has been made possible because of the NKN network. So this is where the information systems is going to play a very important role, which it has already played during this pandemic, especially. Not that it just played this important role only during this pandemic, but yes, it's going to be further strengthening the initiatives which are going to be taken under the NEP policy. technology, we all know it consists of hardware, the physical components, then the software, which are the instructions that tell physical part what basically instructions they need to pass. Then the operating system, which is the foundation on the hardware, and then the application softwares. Application softwares mean, we have different e-governed softwares developed, like we have the admission systems, we have the examination result modules. Those are all application softwares which interact with the end user. That's how it basically evolves through the application software. If you might have observed during the last couple of months, we've had a couple of applications launched, by the JNK government with our vis-a-vis, if we talk about property return system. That was an application software through which the facility was provided in terms of submission of property returns across JNK. And it's because of that software that made it possible that 3.5 lakh employees submitted the property return, vis-a-vis compared to around 1,000 to 2,000 would earlier submit. So that's basically, now today, post the application software, it has made it possible that it's now a data, it's a repository of 3.5 lakh employees. That's where it becomes more valuable as compared to the software component or the hardware component in the information system, because all this consists of data. Then the networks, obviously, if we are talking today, it's because of the network, which allows smooth transmission and sharing of data, which allows the transmission and sharing of data from one place to another. And that's how the countries, the continents are connected with each other. It's because of that. Everything in technology, the foundation which we say always is the hardware. Hardware in today's time, if we have an hardware or a software without networks, without connectivity, it's useless. In the beginning itself, I said that in the country, as compared to other parts of the globe, we have the most cheapest mode of transmission in terms of price, in terms of the expenses which we have to incur on the transmission. I would just need a second. Honorable Vice Chancellor is calling me on my phone. Just please give me a minute. Please.
There is some problem with his audio. Is it so?
No. I just muted the mic. I had Honorable Vice Chancellor was calling me, so I just muted the mic for a minute. I'm sorry for that. No, we were talking about information system. As we said, that it consists of technology, hardware, which consists of hardware support and networks. The most important component, there are other most important components in it, which are people, which support decision making, coordination, control, analysis, and visualization in the organization through this technological intervention. Then the process, which I said that, the process was, to collect, store, and disseminate the information. I talked about property return system. Technology, hardware, and networks made it possible. Then people did certain decisions on making it, possible, and then coordinated with different stakeholders. Around 10,000 DDOs were on board on this, which were, registered in the system, and then they were following it up with their employees. Then there was a control over what DDO's role had. Then there was an analysis as well, visualization in terms of what is going to be the output. We were visualizing it, how much data is going to come, how much resources we would require during this peak load and during the low load. We were all visualizing it. That is possible through people. Those are the things which are controlled in the information system by people. Then the process, as you know, the process through the application softwares, through the technology, collects, processes, and stores. It's a triangle of 3 dimensions working together. And then it makes it possible that it's a successful information system. It's not only the technology can make it possible alone, or the processes embedded in through the applications can make the process or success. It's the most important component. All these 3 dimensions, working together, make it possible and make it success. Process which we say benefits. It increases productivity, better decision making ability, improved process using available data within the organization, within the company, externally with the suppliers or customers. Where if we talk about the GEM itself, it's an application software which has been developed, and the processes are managed by people internally, where they ask for bids, they get in touch with the suppliers. But at the back end, the technology as well as the application software is embedded with processes of the GFR, which tell you, which automatically give you an output on which automatically give you result on the L1 or the products which are available there with the different suppliers. That is how the process takes place at the back end. You don't have to worry about the total picture.
सर आपकी माइक में कोई दिक्कत है सर? आप उसको पहले एक बार चेक कीजिए,
एक मिनट,
बराए मेहरबानी।
एक मिनट प्लीज।
It is okay now. You can carry forward.
I don't know why it is. It's just a laptop. I have been using the same laptop since years now, but this time around, it's the first time I've got a complaint about the mic.
नहीं, अब ठीक चल रहा है, अब ठीक चल रहा है. Please go ahead.
Then if we talk about information technology history की अगर हम बात करें, तो history में देखें कि how it is evolved. Information system, 1950, 1960s, we had mainframes, we have manufacturing, resource planning systems. अगर हम mainframes की बात करें, University of Kashmir में physics के पास, computer science के पास कुछ mainframe computers आए थे, जो which were there, but they were not purchased in 50s or 60s. They were purchased post, in 90s, in fact, 98, 90s or 95, like that. But this is how the evolution, the history of the IT information systems has evolved. Then in 70s and 80s, we've got first microcomputer. Then we got Windows operating system. जबकि पहले हमारे पास command driven interface होता था. And then we would have Linux command driven, Unix command driven operating systems. So Windows made it possible. We had an GI based interface, that was the Windows operating system, which came into being in 1970s and 1980s. Then in mid 80s to 90s, we got client server architecture based application. Client server architecture based applications are those applications where there was a centralized server, and then the client applications were to be installed on each desktops in order to access that server. But in today's time, it's evolved so that we do not use this client server architecture now anymore. We use web-based technologies where the user does not need to know or install certain things before on his desktops. Just the browser gives us an interface and we are able to connect to different applications. If we talk about जो हमारे यहाँ कश्मीर यूनिवर्सिटी के साथी हैं, जो अब सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी में गए हैं या जो इस वक्त भी कश्मीर यूनिवर्सिटी में है, जब हमने लाइब्रेरी में इवॉल्व किया डिजिटाइजेशन, we established library automation through a client server software which was जो सोल जो इन्फ्लुएंट ने दिया था, जिसमें we had to set up a separate server जिसमें डेटाबेस और उसका सॉफ्टवेयर इंस्टॉल करते थे, और उसकी क्लाइंट कॉपी हमको हर नोड पे, हर कंप्यूटर पे कनेक्ट करने की जरूरत होती थी या सर्कुलेशन पे इंस्टॉल करना पड़ता था. Then it would get connected to the the server. But now it's not so, because networking and web-based interfaces, web technologies have evolved so much in the post 2000s that now this client server architecture is not used. ERPs जो होते थे पहले SAP के होते थे या बाकी different organizations के PeopleSoft को होता था, they were also based in 1990s, 80s, 90s, they were based on client server architecture. That's how it evolved. And then mid 90s to early 2000s, we got World Wide Web that every one of us in fact also know. And in Kashmir University, it's the same. 2001, 2002, 2003, it evolved from the library, and then the browsing center came into place, and then we were on 264 kbps connectivity. We were, and our esteemed teachers, our employees would come down to library and start browsing. And I remember the first internet cafe which was established in Bangalore, in one of the cafes. One of my cousins was with me at that time. He had visited US, and he took me immediately after the inauguration of that cyber cafe. We went there. He started opening Hotmail. I was wondering what he was doing and what is it about. In 2000, in fact, I had already done my engineering also in computer science, but World Wide Web had not evolved. I myself was not knowing what this World Wide Web is and how internet was to be used. That's how, in mid 90s it came, and then post early 2000s, Web 3.0 came, mobile computing came, cloud computing came. I'd be just giving you a glimpse in just a slight information about cloud computing. And that's how it's made possible that all those earlier technological limitations on client server technology were already thrown away after this World Wide Web came into being. And today it's so that every application of ours is all web-based, and it's responsive. That once you open it on your desktop, you will have the complete view of that application. You open on your laptop, it's so responsive that it fixes the size of that screen. And on the mobile itself, when you open, you don't need a mobile app, and it resizes it automatically. That's the way web technologies have changed the dimensions of communication, especially. Then this is how information technology comprise of many technologies for capturing, interpreting and storing of data. We have laptops, desktops, networks, Wi-Fi's, notebooks, computers, ebooks. We use Kindles. We use so many types of devices, PDAs and other things. Then we have been using during this pandemic YouTube's highly in dissemination of our lectures, and then University of Kashmir in 2016, 14, 15, to took an initiative of developing e-tutorials for the students, and we started pushing, all the faculty members pushed their e-tutorials through the university portal, and then the students could download those tutorials sitting at home. Unfortunately, we have had blackouts on internet, where at that time also what we did was that we had around 40 odd IT centers across different colleges. We asked the students to go to the nearest IT center and download it from there and take it from there. When we had a blackout, we had disruptions in the internet connectivity. We've had hard times also, but Jammu and Kashmir has also not been lagging behind in these technological interventions and transforming education through ICT tools. Then this is how learning environments changed. Then the professional development happened in terms of teachers also evolved and learned the different modes of technological interventions through by disseminating education through technological interventions. Those teachers who were shy or afraid of getting into this technological teaching, they also learned and got confidence and started disseminating their curriculum and instructions to the students through these information systems. And then the continuous assessments, which we all have been doing during this pandemic through the ICT-based technologies, like we have been using Google Sheets, we have been using Google Classrooms, we have been using MOOCs also, we have been using Moodle, we have been using we in IT and university, couple of departments have been using. We developed an in-house online examination system with descriptive as well as the objective type of questionnaires for departments, which a couple of departments did use. But then simultaneously last year, what happened was there were certain offline exams and offline classes which started. Then again it came back to halt. But then again we shifted back to offline technologies. We have developed a complete examination system online examination system with we do proctoring through Google Meet. We conducted exam of previous semester of many students through the same, where there is an option either to write on descriptive questions, there's an option to write on paper and then scan it, or there's an option to type it there itself, any student who has a good typing speed. How we have evolved and transformed the education system. How students prepare themselves increasingly during this complex life which we've had since last 2 years, especially their innovation, their creativity also came into front. And then the critical thinking and problem solving also, which we did using these innovation skills. Certain labs simulators were also used during this. It was made only possible because of the transformation and dissemination of information because of ICT. We had in these cycles we have flexibility of adaptability. Certain people adopted through Google Education, certain people adopted through Zoom, certain teachers adopted through WebEx, where we have a separate webinars and training options. It has an AI based tool which gives us an alert on any student who's not attentive in the class. The teacher gets an alert. So that's how the technology and the career skills also enhanced of students getting into the, especially on social media front. We've had in the 21st century, citizens are able to exhibit functional and critical thinking skills in terms of information literacy, media literacy. I think if we talk about print media also, print media has evolved through the technological interventions on social media, vis-a-vis on web portals, or we have all information now available at our fingertips because of the these information systems in the 21st century. In terms of students also, we have had a cluster of skills, and in this digital age we've had a good e-literacy. Screen literacy has increased, especially.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब, मैं माजरत चाहता हूं कि वक्त की किल्लत है और हमने जैसे आपको पहले अर्ज किया था कि आपको 20 मिनट में कंप्लीट करना है, तो अगर आप इसको समेट दें तो बेहतर रहेगा।
फिर हम बात करें इम्पैक्ट ऑफ आईसीटी, जो हमने अभी तक बात की कि इम्पैक्ट ऑफ आईसीटी।
एवोल्यूशन भी अगर बात होगी तो ज्यादा, क्योंकि हाँ अगर आप इसको समेटे तो ज्यादा बेहतर रहेगा, क्योंकि
एवोल्यूशन का मैं एक स्लाइड दिखा लेता हूँ। एवोल्यूशन की ये स्लाइड इंपॉर्टेंट है आज की जनरेशन के,
क्योंकि हमें एवोल्यूशन के हवाले से भी, इस हवाले से ही आज का प्रोग्राम है, तो ये भी एक
जी। अगर हम एवोल्यूशन की बात करें तो अगर हम अपने छोटे बच्चे को ही किंडरगार्टन में डालते हैं, what do you think, how do you think my first day of, when we asked the kid, how do you think your first day at kindergarten went? Earlier the kid would tell us that there were no toys, or there were no car toys, or there were no all those things available in the kindergarten. But today's child says that there wasn't a Wi-Fi in the kindergarten. That's a 3 years old or a 3.5 years old kid who today says that that's how it has evolved, from 50s to 60s, and then during our generation to this kind of generation which we have, those who are all tech savies and tech kids. Talk about my kid also. I have a 3-year-old kid who has been all the time watching those YouTube videos of Blippi, who would teach him, look, there's a new thing. What is the color of this? And then let us open it. He's not able to say everything, but he runs on these YouTube videos of kid videos himself. That's how the technology has evolved during this period, and I think 10 years down the line there'll be something different compared to even what we have today. That's how internet has evolved. Earlier, which was available only with the army, which was only available with the establishments of army and other these intelligence networks. Now that's open with all of us, and that's how we have been, we have evolved during this. That's how the information system has evolved from a mainframe to the client server, and now to the web technologies which we have, in place, and we disseminate the information at so easily, and that's how world has transformed. So I'd like to conclude here because of short of time. I would thank all of you.
सर आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। डॉक्टर मारूफ नईम कादरी साहब का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। मैं यहाँ पर एक बार फिर प्रोफेसर खोरू साहब से एक बार फिर मुल्तमिस हूँ कि अगर आप इस हवाले से मुख्तसरन कुछ कहना चाहते हैं तो बराए मेहरबानी अपने नायाब तासुरात को हाज़रीन मजलिस के सामने रखें।
वाले हमेशा टू द पॉइंट होते हैं, so I try to be to the point. Maruf Saab, I saw you also evolving. I remember you traveling with me in the university bus as a young boy. Now coming to this level, I really am feeling very happy to see you reaching to this status. It's really good. I remember my earlier days in the university, जब हमारा नेट वगैरह स्टार्ट हो गया था, तो you were highly in demand. Everyone was looking for Maruf kahan, because the system was not established. Now that it has been fully established and people are very, very comfortable with all this, I give you full credit for that. And to your senior also, Professor Mehraj Sahab, Allah se magfirat kare, you two people have been working very hard to establish the system, and alhamdulillah, it has been established to a full extent now. There are always chances of improvement. एक बात आपसे मारूफ साहब पूछना चाहता हूँ وہ یہ ہے کہ since I have joined in IUST, آپ کے یہاں کشمیر یونیورسٹی میں we have got an established system of IT and library is fully equipped. میں صرف یہ جاننا چاہتا تھا آپ کے اس پروگرام کے حوالے سے, can't my students in IUST Islamic University avail the facilities of your library? مطلب normally what I should do for that, because that will be really a great benefit to my students in the IUST. وہ بات مجھے ذرا آپ بتا دیجیے so before I conclude.
اگر ڈیجیٹل لائبریری کی بات, جو ریسورس پاس اویلیبل ہوں گی وہ ہمارے پاس ہوگی, جو ہمارے پاس ہوں گی وہ آپ کے پاس. اگر آپ ایسا چاہتے ہیں کہ لیٹ اس سے you would like to have an access on those digital libraries or digital resources of Kashmir University and a physical access to the library also, obviously it has to be open today, because new education policy, it says that you have to share the resources, you have to share the data, we have to be more open-minded in terms of if we have to implement the national education policy successfully. اگر ہم بات کریں کہ ہم بول رہے ہیں کہ جموں کشمیر یوٹی جو ہے فرسٹ سے ہم NEP کو امپلیمنٹ کرنے جا رہے ہیں, جس میں ایجوکیشن کورسز 4 سال کی ہوں گی, تو obviously students اگر کچھ کورسز یونیورسٹی آف کشمیر سے لے لیتے ہیں تو that library facility has to be made available to those students as well. So I think
وہی میں مطلب جاننا چاہتا ہوں how the process can be started to make it.
I would suggest that a small, sort of an MOU with no financial implication, especially because now if we have to implement NEP, there cannot be financial implication, should not be made hindrance for implementation of those things. Yes, the normal fee which student has to pay in terms of library, they should be allowed to pay that, and they should be allowed to avail those facility. I think first step, I suggest you that you should be taking up with the University of Kashmir, the Vice Chancellor should be taking up with the other Vice Chancellor, that across J&K, not only with University of Kashmir, IUST, or IUST with University of Kashmir, other universities, Vice Chancellors should sit and, they have to make this uniform policy of accessibility, giving free accessibility to the students across different universities. تو وہ اگر اس لیول پہ جاتا ہے تو obviously پھر جو نارمل فی جو اسٹوڈنٹس لائبریری میں بھرتے ہیں, they should be also given that library card. It's not that it should be only confined to a particular university student itself.
تو میرے خیال میں what I got from your observation is ہمارا تو basically NEP میں 20% of the lectures have to be online. میرے خیال میں we should make a hub of the some lectures within the UT between all the universities, so that the data is available and it can be accessible to all the students from all the universities.
اسے معروف صاحب سے رابطہ منقطع ہو گیا ہے, اور میں یہ کہ عرض کرتا چلوں کہ کھورو صاحب کی رائے بہت ہی زبردست ہے. تو یہ یونیورسٹی کے درمیان بلکہ لوگوں کے درمیان ایک رابطے کا پل بننا چاہتے ہیں. سر آپ کا بہت بہت شکریہ.
بہت شکریہ
سر. معروف صاحب آپ کا بہت بہت شکریہ.
بہت
میں یہاں پر اپنے رجسٹرار صاحب کا پروفیسر محمد افضل زرگر صاحب کا شکریہ ادا کرنا چاہتا ہوں, جو دفتری معاملات کے باوجود صبح سے اس مجلس کے ساتھ برابر جڑے ہوئے ہیں. سر آپ کا بہت بہت شکریہ.
جناب عرفان صاحب, یہ میری خوش قسمتی ہے کہ میں اپنے ایکسپرٹس کو جو ہے سن رہا ہوں, اور یہ میرے معلومات میں اضافہ کر رہا ہے. شکریہ بہت سب لوگوں کا.
شکریہ سر. کارروائی کو آگے بڑھاتے ہوئے میں یہاں پر بتانا چاہوں کہ لگ بھگ اس دانشگاہ کی عمر 1 دہائی کی ہوگی, اور اس کو پوری دہائی کے رنگ بدلتے عہد میں اپنی علمی اور انتظامی صلاحیتوں اور کمالات کو سامنے رکھتے ہوئے جس شخص کا نام ہمارے سامنے آتا ہے وہ ہے پروفیسر ولی محمد شاہ صاحب. موصوف اس وقت کشمیر یونیورسٹی کے کئی اہم انتظامی عہدوں پر کام کر رہے ہیں, جن میں ڈین فیکلٹی آف میٹیریل اینڈ کیمیکل سائنس, ڈین IQAC وغیرہ شامل ہے. میں آپ سے ملتمس ہوں کہ آپ تاریخی شعور کو سامنے رکھتے ہوئے علمی ریاضیات کے حوالے سے اپنے تحقیق کو اس مجلس کے سامنے رکھیں. پروفیسر ولی محمد شاہ صاحب.
تھینک یو عرفان صاحب.
प्रोफेसर शाह साहब, आप म्यूट पे हैं।
स्क्रीन शेयर कर रहा हूँ प्लीज।
जी जी जी, आप म्यूट पर हैं। अच्छा, हो गया। नहीं, अब ठीक है। अब थोड़ा सा वीडियो भी दिखाइए हमको।
हम जनाब दिखा देंगे, बस स्क्रीन शेयर करने दीजिए।
दर्शन दर्शन करने को लो लामुत।
शायद साहब मैं ट्वीट कर रहा हूँ नए सिरे से, फिर कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि इसमें कहीं गड़बड़ हो रहा है।
जी 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 जी, कर लीजिए।
विद इन अ मिनट आई विल टेक इट।
नो इश्यूज, नो इश्यूज।
तो शाहिद साहब,
जी
अब तक हम अपना काम करें।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, आप हुक्म करें सर।
नहीं सर जी, क्या बात करें। ये मैं ये मारूफ सबस वुना कि वी कैन हैव एन, मतलब मेचुर बसा इवन सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटीज एक्सेसिबल टू द यूनिवर्सिटी स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ आईयूएसटी। कुछ ऐसा नहीं हो सकता मतलब सारे स्टूडेंट्स को सारी फैसिलिटीज, लाइब्रेरी अवेलेबल हो, लाइब्रेरी व्हाई आर नॉट वी वर्किंग ऑन दैट? मतलब मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा।
मुझे आई थिंक मारूफ गिव अ वेरी गुड सजेशन इफ देयर कैन एमओयू बिटवीन द 3 यूनिवर्सिटीज एटलीस्ट, और मे बी एनआईटी को भी जोड़ सकते हैं, एटलीस्ट जो हमारे बड़े इंस्टीट्यूशन हैं स्कॉस्ट को भी जोड़ सकते हैं, सो दैट यू नो आवर स्टूडेंट्स कैन शेयर द रिसोर्सेज। एक तो हो गया कि आपको डिजिटल रिसोर्सेज जो हैं, डिजिटल रिसोर्स में कुछ रिसोर्स ऐसे हैं जो जब मारूफ ने भी कहा कि हमारे सबके पास अवेलेबल हैं, बिकॉज यू हैव एक्सेस टू दोस एंड बुक्स। बट फिजिकल एक्सेस जो है, फिजिकल एक्सेस पॉसिबल नहीं है आज के डेट में।
नहीं,
So if
फिजिकल
there is
एक्सेस तो पॉसिबल नहीं है।
there is an MOU that you know the students of IUST can come to the Kashmir University Library. CUK students can go to the IUST library. So there has to be, maybe the vice chancellors will have to take a lead on this, or maybe you can propose to your vice chancellor. अफजल साहब हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं, हमारे रजिस्ट्रार साहब, हम उनको भी रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे। And it's a good idea. I think it's a fantastic idea that we should take forward. और जैसा इन्होंने भी कहा कि नेशनल एजुकेशन अथॉरिटी शेयरिंग ऑफ रिसोर्सेज। So
I know. We all the universities are living in isolation, which is not like you have got research facilities. Suppose मैं अपने chemistry department की बात कर रहा हूँ, it's a well established department. मेरा IUST में it's a budding department. At least you can get benefit from the university आपका। इसी तरह central university का हाल है। तो बच्चे तो हर जगह से एक जगह दूसरी जगह आके they should feel that they belong to every university.
So maybe after, during this or after this festival is over, we can have a meeting. I will request हमारे रजिस्ट्रार साहब भी जुड़े हुए हैं, वीस साहब से भी रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे, आपके वीस साहब से भी रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे. Maybe we can have a meeting together where these things can be thrashed out and MOU जो है MOU हो जाएगा, तो that will be
Bakarat Pai ask suggestion, please, because I know you have always a drive for doing good work and you did commendable work in MRC also. तो Bakarat Pai suggest कि अगर कोई इत्तेफाक करियो जितनी भी सारी यूनिवर्सिटीज है उनका एक ऐसे ही एक सेमिनार करें between the vice chancellors and then all the registrars and all that, एक दिन कुछ ऐसा ही करें, ऑनलाइन ही हो, because it can be online also, only because the people are busy. तो उससे हम ये सारी चीजें डिस्कस करके फिर कुछ इवॉल्व करें स्ट्रेटजी. I think you can take this initiative.
इंशाल्लाह. अफजल साहब भी जो हमारे साथ हैं,
इनफैक्ट मैं अकबर साहब आपको ये बताना चाहूँगा, I would just inform you कि under the new education policy 2020 the remaining in silos is now not possible. In fact, through ABC also, Academic Bank of Credits, we have to engage ourselves with each other, at least on the local level. And in fact, the vice chancellors have already discussed about it.
Okay.
And already there has to be engagements of the universities. At least जो यूनिवर्सिटीज हमारे यहाँ वैली में है और इनफैक्ट जो हमारे यूनियन टेरिटरी में है, the first interactions will be with them, engagements will be with them, which will be later then extended to the other universities across country. In fact, मैं आपको बता दूं, ये ABC के related है. ये जो आप library resources and other resources, scientific resources, यानी resources available, I mean say intellectual resources also available at the different universities. इसके लिए भी जो है already talks are on. different vice chancellors have already spoken about it. I was also a part of the meeting, which the other day was taken up by the advisor to the governor, honorable advisor, to the honorable governor, wherein these things were discussed, and not only the universities, but also the other higher institutions, higher education institutions, including colleges. They will be encouraged to get engaged with the universities, and universities in turn will be engaged with each other also. Means कि जो है already this has been taken care of, and now it is a matter of on the implementation part. जैसे यहाँ पे मारूफ साहब ने बता दिया कि from first or from this year alone we are going to implement the newer things, and in fact wherein the colleges will be also engaged, higher education are also taking a lead in it, and so we are expecting कि जो है कि by the end of this year there will be the uniformity across. In fact, we will be able to take, some of our students will be able to take classes which your university will be offering, and some of your students will be taking classes and engaging with taking the credits which our university will be offering. I think
that will be appreciable. That will be appreciable. That's really a good step.
I think Professor Shah साहब जुड़ गए हैं हमारे साथ.
चलिए ठीक है, let us listen.
Almost half an hour, so let us allow him to speak. Irfan
Please.
साहब.
सर जैसा कि मैंने पहले अर्ज किया कि प्रोफेसर वली मोहम्मद साहब अपना खुतबा पेश करेंगे, मैं उनसे मुल्तमिस हूं और माजरत के साथ उनको ये कहना चाहता हूं कि आपको 20 मिनट में आपको कंप्लीट करना.
इरफान साहब, मेरा स्क्रीन शेयर हो रहा है?
बिल्कुल हो रहा है. मैथमेटिक्स इज मदर ऑफ ऑल साइंसेस.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to everybody. My worthy chairperson, Professor Khuru Saab, Professor Yusuf Saab, Professor Zafar Saab, Dr. Qadri Saab, our Registrar, Professor Muhammad Abdul Zargar Saab, Professor Shahid Rasool, Professor Irfan Alam Saab, and other colleagues. I first of all thank the organizers to give me, although now it has reduced to 20 minutes, still it is some time to say something about relating to mathematics. Although it is something different to what my colleagues before me spoke, because it was something related to history of their subject, but I have to defend something different. Anyway, so I will start without wasting much time. Directly I will come. First of all, let us see what mathematics is. And here again, I will say briefly that it is from a Greek word, mu alpha theta mu a, means mu alpha ma tha ma. Means it is mathema, that is knowledge, study, learning, etc. In other words, mathematics is study of quantity, structure, space, and change. It is really the basic definition of mathematics and what we need to study in this subject. The research in mathematics resolve the truth or fallacy of conjectures by logic proofs. So without proofs, whatever we state is not accepted. The solution of mathematical problems can take years or even centuries of sustained inquiry. As you know, most of you may know, Fermat's last theorem took 300 years just for a solution. And last years, in 1998, American mathematician solved and gave its proof on more than 128 pages for a single result, that was x cube plus y cube is equal to z cube has no solution in integers. Similarly, there are many problems in mathematics which are so simple in looking, but still we are not having their proof. We have like Riemann hypothesis, which is a 1 million problem, but still no one is able to prove it. So for mathematics, you have, once you state a thing, you have to prove or disprove, and without proof, no one is going to accept it. Now, what is mathematics? Through the use of abstraction and logical reasoning, mathematics developed from counting, calculations, measurements, and the systematic study of the shapes and motions of physical objects. This is what I said in the beginning. Practical mathematics has been a human activity for as far back as written records exist. So this is history. History of mathematics started just from the day man was created on the earth, and it was recorded from the day writing starts. Once written records are available, mathematics will be there in one or the other way. Rigorous arguments first appeared in Greek mathematics, most notably in Euclid's Elements. Euclid's Elements is a book written by Euclid where the geometry was discussed, which we learn in 9th or 10th, which we call as two-dimensional geometry, about which Mahatma Gandhi in his autobiography on page 18 writes that he was not strong in geometry. But when he reached to the 13th proportion of Euclid, the utter simplicity of the subject was suddenly revealed to him, that a subject which only required a pure and simple use of reasoning powers could not be difficult. Even since that time, geometry has become both easy and interesting for him. Usually what we have noticed, for our students, geometry seems them more difficult than other things, means algebra or arithmetic. But as Gandhiji noted that once there is reasoning of power, there is something you teach with reasoning, thing becomes easy. That is, he quoted Euclid and his geometry for that. Now, mathematics developed at a relatively slow pace until the resonance, when mathematical innovations interacting with new scientific discoveries led to a rapid increase in the rate of mathematical discoveries that continues to the present day. Galileo, who was in the 16th century, said, "The universe cannot be read until we have learned the language and become familiar with the character in which it is written." And what is the language in which it is written? He says, it is written in mathematical language, and the letters and triangles, circles, and other geometrical figures. Without means, it is humanly impossible to comprehend a single word. Without these, one is wandering about in a dark land. Mathematics is so universal that whatever is done in the subject, anywhere in any country, even in a remote corner, belongs to the whole world. Not only that, mathematics is that transcendent. Whatever was true in mathematics thousands or more years ago continues to be true even today. Of course, things change according to the context, as the proverbial truth that 2 plus 2 makes 4 is no longer true in general, even in mathematics today. Here, I would like to say that in mathematics, I mean that in case it is 2 apple plus 2 apple, we mean it is 4 apple. In case it is 2 apple plus 2 orange, we don't mean it is 4 because it means something different. So for us, things should be defined, then only counting is possible. The last few decades have seen the introduction and extensive development of subjects on pure mathematics. And in the field of probability and statistics, unprecedented development has been noted. As you know, the one or two Nobel Prizes in economics were given to mathematicians because they contributed in economics through operational research. They proved many things where we can maximize or minimize things mathematically. In the present era, there has been an explosion in knowledge of all scientific fields, especially mathematics, which is the foundation of all exact knowledge of natural phenomena, plays a central role in the intellectual and logical development of mankind, and provides a common language for all sciences. It is not only the universal language, but also the universal tool of approaching all problems. It is believed that the main aim of science is to discover a set of mathematical equations that will describe and predict the alpha and omega, means the beginning and end of the universe. And as such, modern mathematics, modern physics is primarily mathematization of the universe. A mathematician always goes for new theories and results without bothering whether these theories will be applicable in daily life or not. But by the passage of time, these theories become quite applicable in the real sense. You know, we usually do things for n things, for 4, 5, for n dimensions. When and where people need, they require, they can use it. But we don't think that it has any immediate application. Just you can see the relativity where the Einstein dealt with 4-dimensional geometry because it was already available in n-dimensional geometry proved by Riemann. So Riemann was not aware that Einstein can use n equal to 4 for proving the most important relation is equal to mc square. So a mathematician don't care, never cares whatever he is proving will be applicable or not. But by the passage of time, these theories become quite applicable in the real sense. An English mathematician, you know, George Boole, developed the concept of Boolean algebra, a set with two binary operations satisfying some conditions. That is Boolean algebra in the year 1854. At that time, nobody, including Boole himself, knew that this theory had any practical value. And in 1938, after many years, it was observed by Shannon that Boolean algebra could be used to analyze switching or electrical circuits, which are used in the design of computer chips. Thus, Boolean algebra became an indispensable tool for the analysis and design of electronic computers in the succeeding decades. And you know, the coding, decoding, etc., all depends upon the Boolean algebra. Now, coming straight to my topic, mother of all sciences, although it is too difficult to say that mathematics is mother of all sciences, because maybe someone may believe or not believe, but I am of the opinion that once we are in first class, we start our Aleph, B or A, B, C, we start 1, 2, and 3. And that time, it is when a child starts reading or writing, he starts with the mathematics. In that perspective, also, we can say that it has a mother's approach because you start with this only. Otherwise, mother can be defined in different ways. You can say Mother India, you can say Gai Mata, you can say other things, where mother does not mean only which gives birth. Mother has a wide domain. And in that context, we can say that mathematics is mother of all sciences. Anyway, Dr. Bahar Ali, a software engineer, perhaps from Malaysia or Turkey, writes about physics and mathematics. Just he compares them as mother and father. For that, he comes first relation with biology and medical sciences. What is relation of mathematics or physics with biology and medical science? He says, how the body and brain work. Simple answer is chemical reactions. Any work done by any organ of body is manipulated of nutrients. Those it gets from food and drinks. And elements like air it breathes, energy it gets from sun, etc. Whether it is digestion of food or formation of food, or even thinking, everything is just chemical reactions. Thinking is a result of chemical activities in brain, which produces electrical pulses, which flows throughout the nervous system. Even different organs and other body parts basically consist of chemical particles or form proton, etc. Now, we can say that biology is nothing but result of chemistry or chemical reactions. Now, the question arises, what is chemistry? Any chemical object consists of elements which are of different forms of electrons, protons, and nucleus structure. Even the chemical reactions are just multiplication of these electrons and protons. And when these electrons, protons about their energy, their appearance and structure is studied at base level, it is called physics. This is just an example. Try to find out base of any science or subject. We will always find physics as it is base. There may be another science we do not know about, can be base of physics, but at present we do not have any such base for physics. So we can say that physics is mother of all sciences. So far up to this point. Now, what about mathematics? Physics has given birth to all sciences with the help of mathematics. Mathematics can be considered as father of all sciences or a tool which helps in solving problems of every other science, including physics. There would exist no human world or their thoughts without physics, and there would be no physics without mathematics. Even every non-living thing, whether it is natural or human made, has physics and mathematics as it is base. Because without mathematics, physics is not possible. Without physics, chemistry is not possible. Without chemistry, biological sciences have no value in modern times. So making a chain, we can one way or other way say it is mathematics which is base of all science, and without mathematics in present time, no science is possible. Now, इरफान साहब मुझे बताना जब टाइम होगा खत्म तो 1-2 मिनट पहले प्लीज इन्फॉर्म करना. Now, mathematics and physics, I will come separately because they are mostly correlated things. Mathematics is related with physics. Related. Yeah, please.
सर मैं अर्ज करता चलूं कि आप अगर हो सके तो 5-6 मिनट में आप उसको कंक्रीट करें.
प्लीज, मैं कोशिश कर लूंगा क्योंकि मुझे पता है कि इस वक्त खाने का टाइम है तो लोगों की कहीं हो, कोई परेशानी नहीं था. I will try my best.
Okay, sir.
Physics is related with mathematics to a great extent. Mathematical efficiency gives more confidence to learners of physics. Each rule and principle in physics takes mathematical form, and mathematics gives them their final shape. Mathematical calculations occur at every step in physics. The laws of motion, friction, expansion of solids, liquid, pressure, and explanation using mathematics, or everything needs for their explanation mathematics. All the measurements in physics need mathematics. The coefficient of linear expansion of different metals, cubicles, expansion of liquids, expansion of gases, and conservation are calculated using mathematics. The most important questions of mechanics, astronomy, and the physical sciences are different.
शबीर कुरैशी साहब से मैं मुल्तमस हूं कि वो अपनी माइक बंद
are differential or integral equations, both outgrowths of calculus. In its early period of invention, quantum mechanics used an enormous amount of mathematics. In fact, it is almost mathematics for special functions to modern algebra. Now, mathematics and biology. Modern biology needs mathematics in a great amount. The life science will be for mathematics in the forthcoming century what physics was for mathematics in the previous century. Now, exciting challenges in the life sciences can and are being met using mathematical models with a direct impact on improving people's quality of life in health, social, and ecological issues. Simple mathematics is used everywhere in biology. The calories, nutritive values of food articles are calculated using mathematics. To find the rate of respiration and transpiration, we need the knowledge of mathematics. Study of living cells, composition of blood, age and category of plants and animals, and studies using mathematics. Mathematical process and calculations have been applied to advanced studies in hereditary growth, maturation, fatigue, and many other branches of biological and physiology. Knowledge of mathematics is considered essential for a biological, mainly because biological study depends largely on its branches, biophysics and biochemistry, which have attained a rank almost equal to that of independent sciences, which cannot exist without mathematics. Although I have many slides here which I would like to present because of their importance and their relations with other sciences, but because of the paucity of time, I will now directly, we can say that because we are concerned with translation of sciences in Urdu and Kashmiri. As I know that basic project for Central University and Kashmir University is that only, and this is a part of that project which we are having this program these days. Anyway, for that, it is very difficult. Although mathematics is the basic science, is the language of all sciences, but it is very difficult to write mathematics in Urdu or Kashmiri. So I would request the concerned persons that please see whatever is written in Urdu, so far as mathematics is concerned, is too tough. Write it in a way people will accept it. For example, if we have to write alpha beta, we have to take it alpha beta. We have not to translate it. If we have to write integral, we have to write it in the same shape. That will help us. Anyway, in Kashmiri or Urdu, even in poetry, mathematics is used sometime because mathematics is so important that people, whether they are knowing or not knowing, they use mathematics. For example, I am quoting just one verse from Urdu. They say, "Naam hai iska bashar, isme shar hai 2/3." See, bashar, be sheen re. Sheen re means two, Beshinri means 3. So they say Bashar 2 by 3. So they use mathematics. See, if we see Kashmiri, a well-known verse from perhaps from Qadir Sahib Kehna is Vuchum or Kehna yor Kehna, Kehna Vanai Kaspane. Kehna means 0. He sees from one side 0, other side 0, and then he discusses the whole poem related to this one only. Same is the case with Shams Fakir when he says Shunya Gasti was Mun Ul. You see, for us, extended infinity from real line is difficult. And when we go to extended complex plane, it is much more difficult because we do things within minus infinity and plus infinity. We don't touch it. We do within complex plane. We never go outside it. But when I see Shams Fakir says, Mera ashana to shunya se bhi aage hai. He goes beyond infinity. I then feel that he is more seeing than Allama Iqbal, who says sitarun se aage. He gives something defined, sitarun se aage, but he says shunya se bhi aage. He goes beyond infinity. So with these words, I thank you all for giving me time and for listening me. Thank you very much, sir.
शुक्रिया प्रोफेसर वली मोहम्मद शाह साहब. सॉरी फॉर इंटरप्शन. वली मोहम्मद शाह साहब के लिए शेर अर्ज करता चलूं कि ये रियाजी का फार्मूला नहीं, कीमत दिल की किसी को क्या मालूम.
इरफान साहब ये बात होगी ना, यहाँ पे भी आप मैथमेटिक्स पे कीमत पे आ गए.
चलिए सर, इसमें थोड़ा सा फॉर्म सर, एक मिनट सर, मुझे इसमें थोड़ा सा टेक्निकल कुछ ग्लिच आ गया. हाँ, प्रोफेसर वली मोहम्मद शाह साहब, आपका एक बार फिर बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. सदर महफिल की इजाजत से, चूंकि सर आपको यहाँ पर अब सदारती कलिमात मरम्मत फरमाने हैं, तो इसलिए मैं इस मौजू को भी उसी में समाना बेहतर रहेगा, अगर आपकी इजाजत हो.
You will conclude it?
नहीं सर, मैंने कहा कि आपको इसी में समाना होगा, आपको कंक्लूड करना होगा, तो इस मौजू को भी उसी के साथ समाइए फिर.
ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है.
मैं सर एक मिनट सर.
जी जी जी.
मैं कहता हूँ कि आप फिर अगर उसी में समाएंगे टोटल पर सदारती कलिमात में, आखिर पर आप
मैं उसी में कंक्लूड.
मैं यहाँ पर अर्ज करना चाहता हूँ कि मैं यहाँ पर आपको गोश गुजार करता चलूं और वली साहब के गोश गुजार भी करता चलूं कि ये बात अर्ज करता चलूं कि प्रोफेसर शाहिद रसूल साहब की रहनुमाई में जो प्रोजेक्ट हमने शुरू किया है, इसके उर्दू माहनामे तजस्सुस का पहला शुमारा हमने यूम रियाजी को सामने रखते हुए यूम रियाजी के लिए मुख्तस रखा. मुझे लगता है सर आपको उस पर नजर गई होगी, जिसमें जिन माहिरीन रियाजात ने लिखा उनमें डॉक्टर मुख्तार अहमद खांडे साहब, डॉक्टर निसार सुल्तान साहब के अलावा डॉक्टर इम्तियाज साहब और डॉक्टर राशिद मकबूल साहब ने लिखा है. तो मुझे लगता है कि आप हमें उसमें क्रेडिट दीजिए कि हमने किस तरह से मैथमेटिक्स को उर्दू में लाने की कोशिश की है, और इंशाल्लाह मुझे पता मुमकिन है ये बात.
इरफान साहब, ये तो हम बाद में डिस्कस करेंगे, क्योंकि इस वक्त तो मुझे नहीं लगता इसके लिए होगा, तो हम अपने साहिब सदर को ही टाइम देंगे ताकि वो इख्तिताम कर ले, क्योंकि मुझे पता है कि लोग चाहते हैं कि आप माइंड अप कर लें.
यहाँ पर मैं सदारती कलिमात के लिए प्रोफेसर मोहम्मद अकबर खुरू साहब से मुल्तमिस हूँ कि वो अपने तासुराती कलिमात से इस मजलिस को नवाजे. जैसा कि पहले ही मैंने अर्ज किया कि प्रोफेसर मोहम्मद अकबर खुरू साहब इस वक्त इस्लामिक यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी अवंतीपोरा में सदर शोबा कीमिया के साथ साथ डीन फैकल्टी भी हैं. आप कश्मीर यूनिवर्सिटी में भी सदर शोबा कीमिया की खिदमत अंजाम दे रहे हैं. सॉरी सर, आपने अंजाम दी है. आप बैनुल अक़वामी सतह के माहिर कीमिया हैं. ये हमारे लिए बास इफ्तिकार है कि आपने इस मजलिस की सदारत कबूल करते हुए इस मजलिस को रौनक बख्शी. प्रोफेसर मोहम्मद अकबर खुरू साहब.
I put my video on also so that I am visible.
Please sir.
So let me first have my remarks about Professor Wali Shah Saab's lecture. Though we have not met, I don't know, but he has not been working in the Kashmir University when I was there. But now it was really a pleasure to listen to him. Sir, मैं ये बात सिर्फ एक ही कहूँ mathematician से, which I always mostly interact with Professor Sophie also. Especially हमारे यहाँ mathematicians को एक बहुत बड़ा challenge है to popularize the mathematics subject. Students बहुत डरे हुए हैं mathematics से. Though you have rightly said it, it's the mother of all the sciences. Unless you know mathematics, you can't be a good chemist. You don't know mathematics, you can't be a physicist. But then there is a scare with the students. I think the biggest challenge with the mathematicians of this place is to popularize it. Perhaps आपने जो end पे शमस फकीर के साथ इसको जोड़ दिया, such type of teach to the mathematics can definitely be quite helpful to the students. I wish you take it like that to the students so that the subject becomes much more popularized in the days ahead. This is about, right, sir? Okay, regarding the seminar, it was really a fruitful day. I honestly speaking, in the beginning when it was snowing, I thought that the day will be boring, but I thank Shahid Rasul for making this day very productive. Listening to all the speakers was really a pleasure, right from zoology, mathematics. Then we heard about IT, we heard about botany. It was really a productive day. Thank you very much for making it a productive day. And at the same time, would request Shahid Saab, Maruf Saab to make more such programs so that we get more interactive sessions between different universities, especially our vice chancellors could interact through online. That would be very, very productive. And link our students also so that they are benefited from the faculties from the different universities. With all these words, I thank all the speakers. I thank all the participants who have been listening. I could see that the audience is absolutely there. We got right from the start till now, we got a full participation. That's really remarkable. That shows that how the seminar has been effective. Otherwise, mostly I feel that once we have got online lectures, people start leaving, but I didn't find much people leaving, though it has been going on for last 3 hours. Shahid Saab needs congratulations for taking this initiative and shifting from offline to online and making it even successful online seminar. And to the Arif Saab, who has been really good in Urdu. I tried a lot to comprehend his Urdu words. We are losing Urdu also a lot, but then his Urdu is absolutely amazing. That was really, I was trying my level best to comprehend your vocabulary of the Urdu. And then Zargar Saab, who being an administrator could find and was right from start till end to us. I take the opportunity of thanking you all for being the part of this seminar and request Shahid Saab again to have much more interactions in our future. With all these words, I thank you very much for honoring me for presiding over this seminar.
प्रोफेसर मोहम्मद अकबर खुर साहब, आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कि आपने हमें इज्जत बख्शी। आज की इस निशस्त का मौजू था साइंस का तारीखी शऊर, और आज के माहिरीन में डीन फैकल्टी बराए बशरियात मरकजी जामिया बराए कश्मीर प्रोफेसर मोहम्मद यूसुफ साहब, मारूफ माहिर नबातात प्रोफेसर जफर अहमद रशीद साहब, इतलाती टेक्नोलॉजी के नाजिम डॉक्टर मारूफ कादरी साहब जो कश्मीर यूनिवर्सिटी से ताल्लुक रखते हैं, और डीन बराए केमिकल साइंस मरकजी जामिया कश्मीर प्रोफेसर वली मोहम्मद शाह साहब भी शामिल थे। और इस मजलिस की सदारत मारूफ माहिर कीमिया प्रोफेसर मोहम्मद अकबर खुरू साहब ने अंजाम दी। मैं आखिर पर डीन फैकल्टी बराए तालीम प्रोफेसर ज़हूर अहमद गिलानी साहब से मुल्तमिस हूँ कि वो इस सादा मगर बारौनक मजलिस के हवाले से शुक्रिया की तारीख पेश करें और साथ में इस मजलिस के इख्तिताम का भी ऐलान करें। माइक हवाला करने से पहले मैं ये बात हाज़रीन मजलिस के गोश गुजार करता चलूं कि कल की तकरीब इंशाअल्लाह ताला गांधी भवन में मुनक्किद होगी, और अगर मौसम खराब रहा तो इस हवाले से कोऑर्डिनेटर फेस्टिवल प्रोफेसर शाहिद रसूल साहब शाम तक हमें मुतला करेंगे। प्रोफेसर ज़हूर अहमद गिलानी साहब।
ख़वातीनो हज़रात, अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातहू। आज मुझे लगता है कि अगर मैं ये शेर अपनी यूनिवर्सिटी के लिए इस्तेमाल करूं तो मुबालगबान नहीं होगा। کہ
ویلکم سر.
ساحل سے جو ٹکرائے اسے طوفان کہتے ہیں, ساحل سے جو ٹکرائے اسے طوفان کہتے ہیں, اور جو طوفانوں سے ٹکرائے اسے سینٹرل یونیورسٹی آف کشمیر کہتے ہیں.
شکریہ سر.
اس کا سرا اور اس کا سارا کریڈٹ مجھے لگتا ہے کہ ہمارے وائس چانسلر صاحب پروفیسر فاروق احمد شاہ صاحب,
بالکل,
ہمارے حد العزیز رجسٹرار صاحب پروفیسر محمد افضل زرگر صاحب, اور
بالکل
اس پروگرام کے روح رواں شاہد صاحب. جب میں صبح سویرے اٹھا نماز کو گیا تو مجھے لگا کہ برف بڑی تیزی سے گر رہی ہے, تو پتہ نہیں آج کے پروگرام کا کیا کروں, مجھے دماغ میں تھوڑی سی ہلچل تو ہو ہی جاتی ہے. لیکن جب ہی میں نے شاہد صاحب سے فون پہ رابطہ کیا تو بہت ہی اچھی خبر ملی کہ ہم وی ول گو آن لائن. تو مجھے لگتا ہے کہ یہ بھی سائنس کی ہی دین ہے کہ آج ہم اپنے گھروں میں بیٹھ کر بھی ایک بہت بڑا پروگرام کی سرگرمیاں سر انجام دے رہے ہیں. تو اس میں سائنس کا ایک بڑا دین ہے, اور شکر ہے کہ وقت کے ساتھ ساتھ ہم بھی بدل گئے اور ہم نے بھی اپنے آپ کو ڈال دیا اس سانچے میں کہ ہم نے بنا, اگرچہ آج صبح برف کی ایک بڑی چادر, موٹی چادر زمین پہ بچھ گئی, لیکن اس نے ہمارے حوصلوں کو پست نہیں کیا. ہمارے جو آرگنائزرز تھے, ہمارے جو پروگرام تھا بالکل شیڈول پہ آ گیا. تو میں ایک اور چیز شیئر کرنا چاہتا ہوں کہ جب میں نے اپنے رجسٹرار صاحب سے بات کی کہ آج تھوڑے سے حالات ٹھیک نہیں ہیں, کچھ فیکلٹی ممبرز فون کر رہے ہیں, تو انہوں نے جواب میں کچھ نہیں کہا, صرف اپنا ویڈیو آن کر دیا, اور جب ویڈیو میں نے دیکھا وہ ہی واز ٹریولنگ ان ہز وہیکل, تو بڑا دلکش جواب مجھے لگا کہ کیا خوبصورت جواب انہوں نے دیا. تو انہوں نے اپنا آج کا سارا پروگرام, اب کی ساری پروسیڈنگز اپنے آفس سے اٹینڈ کی, تو میں ان کو مبارکباد دیتا ہوں کہ ان کی ڈیڈیکیشن کا, تبھی تو ہم سب ان کی گائیڈنس میں ہم یہ سارے کام انجام دے رہے ہیں. تو میں اس پروگرام, جو آج کا پروگرام, میں اس کا اللہ کا شکر کرتا ہوں کہ سب سے پہلے ہمیں اللہ کا شکر کرنا چاہیے کہ ہم نے یہ پروگرام بحسن خوبی آج کا پروگرام سر انجام ہو پایا, اختتام کو پہنچ رہا ہے. کچھ ڈفیکلٹیز آ گئی چونکہ ہمیں کچھ فزیکل پروگرام بھی باٹیکل گارڈل جانا تھا, کہیں اور جانا تھا, لیکن انشاءاللہ ہم آنے والے دنوں میں وہ پروگرام کریں گے اگر اللہ نے ہمارا ساتھ دیا. تو آج کی پروسیڈنگز کے بارے میں چونکہ ٹائم بہت کم ہے, لوگوں کو شیورلی کھانے کا ٹائم بھی ہے, نماز کا ٹائم بھی آنے والا ہو گیا, تو اس لیے میں زیادہ ٹائم نہ لیتے ہوئے آج کی جو اسپیکر حضرات ہیں, جو ہمارے ویلیبل گیسٹس تھے, تو مجھے لگا کہ آج میں صبح سے جڑنے کی کوشش کرا, 2-4 منٹ میں جڑ نہیں پایا کیونکہ کچھ انٹر کا ایشو تھا. ادروائز مجھے لگا کہ آج کے جو اسپیکرز تھے انہوں نے they all were mind blowing. شروعات جب ہم دیکھیں تو پروفیسر محمد یوسف صاحب نے کی, جو ہمارے ڈین اسکول آف سائنسز ہیں سینٹرل یونیورسٹی آف کشمیر, انہوں نے ایک بہت ہی خوبصورت انداز میں علم حیوانات کے بارے میں جو ارتقائی صورتحال سے ہمیں نوازا, اور مجھے بہت خوبصورت اور بہت انفارمیٹیو لیکچر انہوں نے دیا. میں ان کو اس کاوش کے لیے اسے دل سے شکریہ ادا کرتا ہوں, اور منتظمین کی طرف سے, پورے ٹیم کی طرف سے ان کا شکریہ ہم ادا کرتے ہیں. اس کے بعد ہمارے پروفیسر ظفر ریشی صاحب آئے, اور ان کا کیا کہنا, سارے ہمارے جو پارٹیسپینٹس ہیں they were overwhelmed, وہ بہت خوش تھے. ان کی جو ان کا انداز بیاں ہے وہ تو یونیک ہے. ہم ان کے بہت شکر گزار ہیں کہ انہیں بھی علم نباتات کے بارے میں ہمیں ارتقائی صورتحال سے, ہسٹری اور جو دوسری چیزیں ہیں ان سے نوازا, اور دس واز انفارمیشن فار می ایز ویل. مجھے بھی لگا کہ بہت بڑا انفارمیٹیو ہے. تو میں ان کا بھی اپنے منتظمین کی طرف سے, سینٹرل یونیورسٹی کی طرف سے, اپنی طرف سے ان کا بھی تہہ دل سے شکریہ کرتا ہوں کہ انہوں نے بہت اچھے, بہت لیمینز اپروچ میں اپنے چیزیں پیش کی, اور بڑا انفارمیٹیو تھا, بہت سب سامعین کو فائدہ ملا. اس کے بعد ہمارے معروف قادری صاحب, معروف نعیم قادری صاحب نے انفارمیشن ٹیکنالوجی کی ارتقاء کے بارے میں, اور کیا خوبصورت انداز میں انہیں چنار کے پتوں کو شروع کیا, اور کہا کہ آج ہم ورچوئل موڈ میں, یا جو کمپیوٹر کا آج کل بلینڈڈ لرننگ, یا جو ہم دیکھتے ہیں کلاس روم ابھی, یا جو پروسیڈنگز ہم اس سیمینار کی, قومی سیمینار فیسٹیول کی کر رہے ہیں آن لائن, تو دس از آل انفارمیشن ٹیکنالوجی کی دین ہے. تو ہم انفارمیشن ٹیکنالوجی کا جتنا بھی شکر کریں, جتنا بھی اللہ کا شکر کرے کہ یہ اتنی ٹیکنالوجی ہے کہ ہم گھر بیٹھے سارے کام کر رہے ہیں, اور بہت کمفرٹیبل انداز میں. اور اس میں بڑی بات یہ بھی ہے کہ ہمیں آج لوگوں کو ریفریشمنٹ بھی دینا نہیں پڑا, لوگوں نے گھر پہ ہی اپنی چائے استعمال کی اور اپنا ریفریشمنٹ بھی استعمال کیا, ہم ان کے شکر گزار ہیں. اور اس کے بعد ہم دیکھیں ولی محمد شاہ صاحب کا لیکچر تو بہت, یہ چونکہ بڑا ٹاپک ہے, اس میں ڈسکشن کی ضرورت ہے. بڑے یہ ہمارے ہر دل عزیز ڈین فزیکل سائنس اور کیمیکل سائنسز سینٹرل یونیورسٹی آف کشمیر کا کام سر انجام دے رہے ہیں, اور انہوں نے جس انداز میں میتھمیٹکس کو یہاں پیش کیا مجھے بہت اچھا لگا, کیونکہ اقبال صاحب کو بھی انہوں نے اس میں لایا, اور اقبال کا تو وہ کہا ستاروں سے آگے, اور یہاں شمس فقیر کو کہا کہ نہیں انفینٹی سے بھی آگے. تو بڑا اچھا لگا جو موازنہ کیا. اور دوسرا موازنہ مجھے بہت خوبصورت لگا جب انہوں نے کہا کہ 2 اور 2 4 نہیں ہو سکتے, کیونککہ اگر یہ اورینج اور ایپل ہوں گے تو 4 نہیں بنیں گے. تو اس لیے میتھمیٹکس تھوڑا کمپلیکیٹڈ ہے, لیکن میں اگر ایز اے اسٹوڈنٹ آف سائنسز میں کہوں کہ میتھمیٹکس کو مدر آف آل سائنسز کہا جائے تو مبالغہ نہیں ہوگا, کیونکہ ہر سائنس میں میتھمیٹکس کی ضرورت پڑتی ہے. وہ چونکہ اگر ہم اپنے ہیومینٹیز کی بات کریں, اگر ہمیں کوئی کوالٹیٹیو ڈاٹا ہمیں انٹرپریٹ کرنا ہے تو وی نیڈ سم میتھمیٹکس, وی نیڈ کوالٹیٹیو اپروچ فار دیٹ, وی نیڈ دیٹ کوانٹیٹیو اپروچ. اس لیے میتھمیٹکس مجھے لگتا ہے انیویٹیبل ہے, اور اگر ہم کہیں کہ میتھمیٹکس از مدر آف آل سائنسز تو یہ کوئی مبالغہ نہیں ہے. تو دوسری بات ہم کہیں جو ہمارے صاحب صدر ہیں, اس صدر کے نشست کے, اس پوری نشست کے صدر جو رہ چکے ہیں, جو ہمارے پروفیسر محمد اکبر کھورو صاحب, میں ان کا بہت مشکور ہوں, اور میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ انہوں نے اس پورے پروگرام کو بڑا دلچسپ بنا دیا. جیسے لاسٹ پہ انہوں نے سارے اسپیکرز کی کنکلوڈنگ ریمارکس بنائے, تو مجھے لگا کہ کتنے سافٹ انداز میں, کتنے بہترین طریقے سے انہوں نے پھر ساری چیزوں کو کچھ 2 4 5 سینٹینسز میں سمیٹ لیا, سمندر کو کوزے میں بند کر دیا. مجھے لگتا ہے کہ ماہر انسان ہی کر سکتے ہیں. تو میں ان کو ہمارے اس پروگرام میں اس کو زینت بخشنے کے لیے, اس پروگرام کو چیئر کرنے کے لیے, صدارتی خدمات, صدارتی یہ جو نشست پہ برجمان رہنے کے لیے اپنا قیمتی وقت صبح شروع سے ہی 11 بجے سے یہ ہمارے ساتھ جڑے رہے اور ابھی تک ہمارے ساتھ بنے ہیں, میں ان کو بہت شکر گزار میں سینٹرل یونیورسٹی کی طرف سے, اب منتظمین کی طرف سے ان کا شکریہ ادا کرتا ہوں. بے شک میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ میرے الفاظ کم پڑتے ہیں کہ ان حالات میں, آج چونکہ صبح سویرے حالات کچھ اچھے نہیں تھے, موسمی حالات اچھے نہیں تھے, اور جب موسم خراب ہوتا ہے تو موڈ خراب ہو ہی جاتا ہے, لیکن اس کے باوجود ہمارے اسپیکرز نے کوئی کمی نہیں رکھی. اپنے جو انہوں نے پریزنٹیشنز دی, بڑی دلچسپ پریزنٹیشنز تھیں, بڑا خوبصورت انداز میں انہیں انداز بیان بھی بہت بڑھیا تھا. اور مجھے لگتا ہے کہ عرفان صاحب کا بھی مجھے شکریہ ادا کرنا ہے, جنہوں نے بالکل شارٹ ٹائم میں, کیونکہ ہمارے جو ماڈریٹر تھے ان کا کچھ انٹرنیٹ ایشو تھا, اور آپ نے بالکل یہ سنبھالا یہ آج کا پروگرام, آپ بھی مبارکباد کے مستحق ہے. تو میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ سارے لوگ جن کا میں نام نہیں لے پایا, خاص کر عرفان صاحب, چستی صاحب, جو ہمارے دوسرے ڈین حضرات ہیں, اور جو بھی منتظمین ہیں سینٹرل یونیورسٹی کے اور کشمیر یونیورسٹی کے جو اس پروگرام سے جڑے ہوئے ہیں, جو 7 دن فیسٹیول کے ساتھ ہمارے ساتھ انشاءاللہ آگے بھی جڑے رہیں گے, میں ان کا سب کا تہہ دل سے شکریہ ادا کرتا ہوں. اور خاص کر ان لوگوں کا جنہوں نے آج کا یہ پروگرام ماڈریٹ کیا یا اس میں ٹیکنیکلی سہایتا ہماری کی, تاکہ ہمیں لگا ہی نہیں کہ کوئی ہنڈرنس, کوئی رکاوٹ آئی ہے اس پروگرام میں. میں اس میں شاہد صاحب کا بھی شکریہ ادا کرتا ہوں, اور تمام دوسرے لوگوں کا جن کا میں نام نہیں لے پایا, میں ان کا بھی شکریہ ادا کرتا ہوں کہ یہ پروگرام بڑی خوبصورت سے سر انجام ہو پایا, اچھی طرح سے تکمیل کو پہنچا. آخر پہ آپ سب کا ایک بار پھر شکریہ.
اس شکریہ کے ساتھ اس ابتدائی علمی و ادبی تقریب کے باضابطہ اختتام کا اعلان کیا جاتا ہے. آپ سب کا بہت بہت شکریہ.